Okay, hi again guys. This is my second video for the Philosophy of Miniature Painting series. The first one was the introduction. If you haven't seen it, please check it out. I explain a bit what I'm going to do here. And basically what I'm going to talk about in this video is the ideas I had for my Volturnos model. Volturnos is quite an important model in my miniature painting career because it was the one that I presented to the Everchosen competition last year, and not only did I win my local store competition, but I also placed in the top 100 of the world, which was way above my expectations. You can check it out in the article Games Workshop submitted to Warhammer community, since it's actually the first entry there, so it's really easy to see. But basically it was a model that I did exclusively for that competition, since I don't have an Idoneth Dipkin army, and I was really happy with the outcome, even though the end was a bit rushed. So, why Volturnos? Why did I choose Volturnos for the Everchosen competition? Well, it's actually a funny story because by the time they announced the competition, I was playing a lot of Warhammer Champions. I don't know if you've heard about it, but it's a card game that Games Workshop released in the line of Magic the Gathering and this kind of games. Though it has some unique mechanics, it's actually really fun, so it's worth a check. For me, the most important feature was that it had an app for your phone or computer through which you can play, either by scanning the physical cards that you have or by getting new ones in the app. It's completely free. If you want to form, you can get basically any card, so it's really fun. And even though now I have left it a bit aside, as Games Workshop is not really supporting it anymore, I was playing a lot at the time, and one of the cards there, one of the champions, was Volturnos. And since I was trying to play an elf-focused deck, I included Volturnos in my first decks. And the cool thing about him wasn't his rules, because he was actually really crappy, but the artwork that the card featured, which showed like this portrait of him that was really different from the model I had seen, since it was quite more dark and gritty. I imagined him with his throne room behind, and him sitting there staring to somewhere not seen in the model, like with this deep expression, whereas the model was kind of screaming like in the middle of a battle. And I really wasn't that much into the actual Idoneth Deepkin models when they were released, but after looking at some more of the artwork, I saw that these darker portraits of them were much more appealing to me, and I wanted to try and capture that style, that the under the sea. They are actually, if you read about them, closer to dark elves than to high elves when relating to Warhammer Fantasy, and that was something that I really liked. So I started doing some research about them, and the thing was that when the Everchosen competition was announced, I made this list of models in a 60mm race, which was the limit that they set for the competition, that I was interested in by looking through Games Workshop web store. And Volturnos was in the final list that I made. As a fun fact, the Dark Elder Ravager was also in that list because it comes with a 60mm base. The Dark Elder Ravager, a tank, comes in the same base than Volturnos, a guy in a sea dragon. But anyways, I went for Volturnos in the end because I wanted to try and capture this image from the Warhammer Champions card in my model. So when I got to it, the first thing I made was a sketch with some basic colors to see how I was going to paint him. And I think this is something that can come in very handy for those starting into color composition, because seeing the colors in paper can sometimes help you think about how they will look in a model. So this sketch was very basic. You can see it here. No detail at all, simply the colors. And I made these choices so that they would complement each other. There's green and there's red, there is yellow and there is this purplish blue, and these kind of things, you know? And I at that moment I was starting to delve into ambience and all these like different illumination settings that you can do on models, very inspired by Alfonso Geraldo's Banshee works and other Spanish painters. And I really wanted there to be two different like light sources aside from the main one to make them all more interesting. Now looking backwards, probably it would have been better if I had either eliminated completely the first light source, or I had only made an additional one. Probably the green one from below wasn't necessary, but whatever, at that moment I was starting to get into it, so I was just trying out new ideas. And I wanted to represent many things on this model, because I did some research about the Idoneth and Volturnos especially, and who they were, and this history that they have with Teclis. Actually, their lore I found really cool. Not cool enough to make a whole army, but I would like to paint some more standalone models, especially the Soul Render, the guy with the hook. I find that miniature amazing, and I think that in this like darker color scheme could look very cool. But anyways, one of the things that caught my attention was that the Sword of Volturnos is named Lightbringer in the Idoneth language, and is supposed to be like this sword of light that Teclis gave Volturnos, because Volturnos is also supposed to be very old. He's one of the first elves that Teclis made. So I wanted to represent like this sword has to be really powerful. It was gifted by a god, actually, so it has to be this very important feature of my model. And since it was made of light, I decided that a yellow OSL could be really appropriate. And I wanted it to be like a real main feature of this model. So that was an idea from the start, and I actually think that in the end it ended up looking less bright than I had intended. But again, I was starting to experiment with those things, so I hadn't complete control over them. And also, I wanted to represent that these are like undersea elves. They aren't supposed to be on the surface most of the time. So I wanted also that to be represented in my model, but covering it all in something shiny or this water effect didn't seem appropriate for a painting competition. So what I went in the end with was this green light from below, because this is actually interesting. Some people associate the sea and the ocean with the blue color, but others associate it with the green. And actually, deep ocean, I see it more green than blue. So I thought it to be a color to represent that he was actually under the water. And that's the one that I would, if I painted that model again, I wouldn't have used it at all. I simply wouldn't have used the light from below. But anyways, at the moment I made that choice to represent the sea, and also I wanted the armor to be I wanted it to be silver because of the artwork. It was silver and it had like this reddish purple cloth underneath. But I wanted it to don't be that bright because again under the sea and all that kind of stuff. So I used this kind of not shiny, non-metallic metal, which I'm actually quite happy with how it interacted with the yellow, and would like to make something like that at some point again. But anyways, that was the colors that I chose, and only the green seems like a bad choice now. But if I hadn't done the light, I would have needed green in another place to complement the red. And the other decision that I made to for Volturnos to look more like I imagined him was to do a couple of conversions. The first one was in the face, because again, this screaming face didn't seem appropriate for me. I wanted something straight out of the artwork, and so I had to convert the mouth and a bit of the eyes and, well, the face in general with some green stuff, which was quite some fiddly work since it's very small. And also, I decided to change up how the mount looked, since this unicorn thing wasn't too appealing for me. I thought it didn't look dark enough for these elves who basically need to kill people to steal their souls so that they can survive, and they go back into the depths of the ocean. That's what I think about when I hear about Idoneth Deepkin, not people who ride undersea unicorns. So I changed it so that it would look more like an abyssal fish, which I also liked. Though again, I added another focal point there with the blue light, which had to be there because after all of these kind deep fishes have this light in the head. But I don't really dig how it ended up looking, so probably I would have needed a softer light for it to look okay. But again, blue was needed to complement, so I ended up doing it that way, even though it wasn't the best one. Again, I was learning at the point how to use USL to create this ambience. And I think I've learned a lot since then, but I still have a lot to learn. And anyways, the most important change for me was the face, because usually the models with their face, they transmit this expression that changes the feel of the model overall. And Volturnus seemed to be angry. The shouting face, he was clearly leading an army in a battle, and he was screaming them to get somewhere with anger. And I wasn't aiming for that. I wanted more of a dark noble elf king. So simply by changing a bit how the mouth was working and shading it a lot, I think I'm pretty happy with how it ended up looking, and it does reflect what I was aiming for. So there's that. And afterwards, when I actually started painting the model, there were some choices that I made up on the run, which again could have been improved. I did this texture in the creature's scales, which again ends up looking good, but probably doesn't work that well with the model, because since I had three different light sources, reflecting them all on these texture scales was I hadn't the skill for that, so they ended up not reflecting the light as they should have. And also the color I chose for the membrane of the beast, which was this reddish skin tone with veins, was again chosen exclusively for color composition so that it would complement the other colors, but it ended up catching too much the eye, and it probably shouldn't have, because most of all, I was clearly keeping a theme in this model of this dark elf, this yeah, it was quite a grimdark model, right? Stoic, like very intense, and this was more of a vibrant color that looked kind of out of place, because the only vibrant color should have been the sword, and in that case the green underneath. Also, the base ended up conflicting with that. So you see lots of mistakes in this model, because what I did was that I made an experimental piece for a competition, and when you experiment in a piece, it's unavoidable that you'll make mistakes. And even though I'm really happy with the outcome, if I had gone in a more safe path and done techniques I was more familiar with, simply by staying with non-metallic metal and a single light source, um, probably the result would have been better. Probably the result would have been better, yeah. And I really don't know why I chose to throw it all in there. I guess that I wasn't expecting to win in my store, or much less to make the first 100. So I decided to enjoy the model, and usually experimentation pieces are the ones that I enjoy the most. So I tried all these new things in a model I was going to present to a competition. Really bad idea, guys, don't do that. But it is true that I learned a lot, and I think that since that piece I paint these ambience lights differently. It probably was a good thing that I made that choice. And since it ended up looking pretty decently and made good in the competition, it ended up going well. So yeah, the main problem with that model is that I made the choice to have this dark theme, but anyways I kept adding colors that broke the theme, and this is probably the main thing that I want to transmit to you in this video. That is that when you choose a theme, completely stick to it. If it was a very large project like an army, you can make an exception or two without it catching too much of the eye. But in the case of a single model, if you break your own theme, you are losing the essence of it. So while you can see in my Volturnos model this dark pattern, you also have the free hand in the cloak that is completely grimdark. But so you can clearly sense this theme. It isn't as strong as it could have been, and I do believe that if I had stick with it completely, it would have been better. So yeah, all in all, this Volturnos was really focused in a lore perspective, because I based it in a piece of artwork and made some research, but also had a strong color composition component, which unfortunately conflicted with the overall theme. But it ended up placing well in the competition. So I think that will be it for this video. I've almost reached 20 minutes talking about my model, so I don't want these videos to be too long, because otherwise they'll get excessively boring. So I'm going to leave it here. Any questions that you have, you can leave in the comments or ask me through my other social media, and hopefully I'll be able to make another one of these soon. So see you all.